We've had such a tremendous day today. It's been really, really special for all of us. And it's been made possible by a lot of people who I just have to very briefly thank. So first and foremost, I'm looking for her and I can't see her, and that is Marion Cunningham, our Associate Director. There she is. Hi, Marion. I learned early on when Marion says, "I got this, John," she knows what she's talking about. You've just been absolutely amazing and energizing and making everything happen. So thank you so much, Marion, and the rest of the team. I also want to give a huge thank you to both the staff of the MIT Museum and of the entire Morningside team. So Lisa, Stephanie, but so many of the Morningside team, you've just been incredible to work with. So thank you to all of you. And then not just as Associate Director Maria Yang, but also as an incredible colleague and collaborator, and then magnificent moderator this morning with that really innovative panel on how we catalyze the future we want to see through design. So Maria, it's just been great to work alongside you, and also I'd like to thank the other two moderators as well, Skylar and Dava. So thank you so much to them. And we are very excited to introduce to all of you the new inaugural cohort of graduate fellows, the Morningside Design Fellows. But first, I'd also like to just say a very quick hello to some special guests we have. We are joined by the chair of the MIT Corporation, Diane Green. Welcome, Diane. We are joined by the CEO of the American Association for the Advancement of Science, Sudip Parikh. Welcome. And we have the two MIT deans who've put the most wind under our wings, Anantha Chandrakasan, Dean of Engineering, and Hashim Sarkis, Dean of Architecture and Planning. Thank you both. So Maria, why don't you tell everyone a little bit about this fellowship process and how we got here, and then we have a short film.
Oh, absolutely. Funny you should ask, John. So we have, maybe in April, we sent out a solicitation for design fellows, the inaugural cohort. And we thought we'd get a few applications. We ended up getting about 100. They were amazing. They were from all across the institute and just sort of really uncovered a lot more about design than we had even expected. People were doing things that we had not even thought of. So fantastic cohort. We worked with the whole faculty sort of committee to sort of help us winnow through. And we've come up with a whole group that you are going to meet now.
Design is everywhere, absolutely.
I think we're all designers in our own experiences.
Design helps us shape the broader world we want to see.
For me, design at the core is really about imagining the future and kind of interrogating the way things are, trying to see how they could be otherwise.
I think design really gets to the heart of what people value, what people need, what our communities need, what will all allow us to live better lives.
The Morningside Academy is the first of its kind at MIT, and it gives us permission to bring design into our work in a loud and proud way.
Bringing design to the forefront really allows us to understand and embrace design as an interdisciplinary tool to solve problems that are difficult to solve with any discipline alone.
What I'm most looking forward to, I'd say, is kind of meeting the people around me. We have a really cool cohort of people that are interested in a lot of different things.
The fellowship is a perfect example where every person around the table has a completely different lens of what design means.
My work focuses on using large-scale 3D printing to print homes for the world's poor. Specifically, remove concrete from foundations. If we can replace it with recycled plastic instead, We can solve an environmental problem and solve the homelessness problem simultaneously.
I'm working on digital equity right now and access to internet. I've been for the past 1 year working in Nairobi with communities on ground in informal settlements, and we set up a community-based Wi-Fi internet hub there.
I'm really interested in desalination for humanitarian emergencies. I'm building deployable desalination systems that could help people in developing countries and also in situations like natural disasters and in conflict-prone regions.
We're working with the people of Sierra Leone to improve their orthotics and prosthetics sector by designing a new way of improving their healthcare system through supply chain, infrastructure, logistics, outreach care, and making sure that the people with disabilities there get the care that they need.
With the fellowship, I'm interested in continuing my collaborations with collectives in rural Colombia, understanding other ways to think about design in places in the margins of mainstream society.
The problem that I'm most interested in is primarily a human-computer interaction problem. If we're able to get to the place that I'd like to see us at, the average person will be able to see themselves in many more types of experiences than they can today.
I'm focusing on customization of garments production. We are bridging digital information and physical bodies to get more data to produce sustainable garments.
The goal of this work is to make plastics that are very functional, but also degrade in a way that doesn't harm the environment and isn't contributing to our exponentially growing problem of plastic waste.
I think design is a really important method for thinking about these kind of huge, pressing societal problems.
The fellowship really allows you to dive into these problems that otherwise might not be funded or that otherwise might be overlooked.
Design can be really impactful, life-changing, something that can sort of be an anchor for people and that can bring forth new beginnings.
We're designing the Morningside Academy while we're part of the Morningside Academy. It's really the land of opportunity right now.
These are our, so I'd like to take this moment to invite our fellows to come down. Yeah, come on down, guys. Yes.
So we'll get a quick photo of you, very good-looking, smart people. But we just remind everyone that one of the things that's so impactful for us is by endowing this for perpetuity, each one of you is going to be able to be an agent of change going out into the world, but then generation after generation of design fellows. And you're the first. So congratulations. All good on the pictures? Okay, thank you all so much. Thanks. And now it's my great pleasure to introduce Bob Millard, former chair of the MIT Corporation, good friend, good colleague, and who's been a huge supporter of design at MIT, and has really helped us get to this place where we are today, where, Bob, I still have to pinch myself how far we've come in 2 years, and so grateful to you, so please come on up, Bob.
Thanks, John. What a great day. It's great to be here. Congratulations to the fellows, and congratulations to everyone here for being present at the beginning, at the launch of something which I think is really going to be enduring and meaningful and big and is going to grow. And let me say a word or two about why I think that. So MIT is, as you all know, is a kind of unique place, and along a number of in a number of dimensions, and two of those dimensions are, one is the interconnectivity of MIT, which I think others have commented on, but the other, which is sort of imbued in the cultural identity of MIT from the very beginning, from its very founding, is that it faces the real world. All these discoveries and inventions that happen on this campus are for naught unless they connect with humans. And the efficacy of that connection is increasingly one of design. Design is the median by which, the Rosetta Stone, by which these things that are so profoundly difficult and interesting get translated into a better life for humanity. And design is a big word, but I think it affects the input and affects the output. I don't think most of you know more about design than I do. I think I was asked by my colleagues to speak because I'm actually the first chairman to have graduated from Hashim School. So there's a pedagogy, there's a process, there's a discipline, there are principles, and I think those the importance of design will forever be more and more important to humanity's progress because it can translate things, the difficult things we do, into human terms. Let me say I have the best speaking role today because I get to introduce Gerald Chan, who is a very, very dear friend. He's, no matter how much I drone on about him to his embarrassment, it won't really capture it. He's a scientist, he's a businessman, an entrepreneur, a philanthropist, but that doesn't quite capture it. He is, it doesn't capture his wisdom, his generosity, his modesty. He has nothing to be modest about, and yet he's incredibly humble. His humanism, his creativity, I can go on and on, but those of you who know him, and those of you who, and I was trying to get some very funny stories out of his two sons there, and I have some, but I don't think I have the time to relate them. In any event, what I do want to say is I spent a lot of time with Gerald over this past decade. His ruminations on the useful purpose of education, not just higher education, all education, and most importantly on his thoughts about how it should evolve to an evolving world, I found to be the most profound I have ever heard. And I made a study of it. I've read a lot of books, and I have not found anything more impactful than Gerald's thoughts. While I was chair at MIT, and I'm not chair, she is, my good friend Diane Green, and I know this. What I want to say is equally true of Diane. While I was chair of MIT, I paid a lot of attention to MIT's place in the world and what it is and what it should be, and nowhere did I find a clearer, more thoughtful, more prescient, more nuanced set of ideas and thoughts than from my friend Gerald. So I told him the other day that be careful about what you say, because like your other speeches, people are going to be watching or listening or reading this for the next 100 years. So I present to you my good friend Gerald Chan.
The late Queen Elizabeth said that grief is the price you pay for love. In today's context with Bob, my dear friend, I say granting a license for others to embarrass you is the price you pay for friendship. And a true hallmark of friendship. You know, Bob is just In case you don't know, he's really the originator of this gift. He's the first one to bring this idea to me when I wasn't thinking about it. But he really coaxed, thoughts out of me and brought this process along, leading up to the wonderful day that we just spent. So I tell you, I couldn't be more pleased about all the speeches or presentations that I heard today. It gives me great confidence, that the Design Academy is going to do great things for the students, for the world. Now, on behalf of the Morningside Foundation, I usually give a speech for every major gift that's given. As Bob says, this is somewhat for posterity. It is for the record. It is to describe, the whys behind the gifts. So why this gift, for the Morningside Academy of Design? To many of my friends, who heard about this gift, they thought that, the Morningside Foundation has changed from its roots of supporting education, science, medicine, public health, to now supporting the arts. Because for them, as for most people, design is in the realm of the arts, where beauty is to find expression. Design, therefore, equals aesthetics. Now, I like to make it clear from the outset that this gift is not about the arts. Historically, the Morningside Foundation has used its philanthropy to highlight important but underappreciated, not only underserved areas that deserve more support for society's greater good. In 2014, long before the world saw a global pandemic, the Foundation's gift to the Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health highlighted the need to support public health. Last year, the Foundation gave a gift to UMass Chan Medical School to highlight the need for philanthropic support to be directed to our state universities. This intentionality is a hallmark of the works of the Morningside Foundation. It is also why the Foundation does not operate in a response mode in spite of its sympathy with many noble causes worthy of support and many dire human conditions desperately in need of support. In keeping with this character of intentionality, this gift to MIT is meant to highlight the field of design. So what then do we mean by design? Now, I can find no wiser words to answer this question than those of Herbert Simon, the polymath who won both the Turing Award for Computer Science in 1975 and the Nobel Prize in Economics in 1978. For me to say anything other than quoting him and expect greater clarity would be a fool's errand. So I will simply read an excerpt from Simon's book, The Sciences of the Artificial, first published in 1969 by none other but the MIT Press. How many of you have heard of Herbert Simon? Oh, quite a few. Great man. But he's known for so many other achievements that I think his seminal work on design has been eclipsed. So I'll quote Simon here. Historically and traditionally, it has been the task of science disciplines to teach about natural things, how they are and how they work. It has been the task of engineering schools to teach about artificial things, how to make artifacts that have desired properties and how to design. Engineers are not the only professional designers. Everyone designs who devises courses of action aimed at changing existing situations into preferred ones. The intellectual activity that produces material artifacts is no different fundamentally from the one that prescribes remedy for a sick patient, or the one that devises a new sales plan for a company, or a social welfare policy for a state. Design, so construed, is the core of all professional training. It is the principal mark that distinguishes the professionals from the sciences. Schools of engineering, as well as schools of architecture, business, education, law, and medicine are all centrally concerned with the process of design. I don't think anyone can offer a clearer, a more forceful, or a more concise statement on the universality of design. Everyone who devises courses of action to change a situation from one state to a more desirable one is engaged in design. Simon then went on to talk about elements of design such as constraints, variables, utility functions, etc., in order to give structure to the practice of design. Hence his term, the sciences of the artificial. Even though he is much better known for his many other intellectual contributions, Simon is truly a seminal figure in the field of design. It is in this Simonian sense of design that the Morningside Academy was conceived. Simon then went on to talk about the place of design education in universities. And I quote, "In view of the key role of design in professional activities, it is ironic that in this century, being the 20th century, that natural sciences almost drove the sciences of the artificial from professional schools or professional school curricula, a development that peaked about 2 or 3 decades after the Second World War. Engineering schools gradually became schools of physics and mathematics. Medical schools became schools of biological science, and business schools became schools of finite mathematics. The use of adjectives like applied concealed but did not change the fact. It simply meant that in the professional schools, those topics were selected from mathematics and the natural sciences for emphasis, which were thought to be more nearly relevant to professional practice. It did not mean that design continued to be taught, as distinguished from analysis." Close quote. That was Simon. Now, looking back into the mid-20th century, it is perhaps not surprising that this shift away from design occurred in universities. Simon described design education at the time as, and I quote, "intellectually soft, intuitive, informal, and cookbooky." Whereas academic respectability calls for subject matter that is intellectually tough, analytic, formalizable, and teachable. So this shift away from design was the consequence of necessary efforts gone too far. By this, I mean the efforts in the early 20th century to anchor professional practice on hard science. The Flexner Report of 1910, which called for medical education in US and Canada to be anchored on physical and life science, was a prime example of those efforts. The inaugural address of MIT's President Carl Taylor Compton in 1930 likewise call for engineering education to be anchored on fundamental science. Times have changed since Simon's writing. Sufficient development has taken place in recent years to make design both formalizable and teachable. Design as a field has gained currency in both educational and professional circles. The term design thinking has been popularized by a sizable body of literature and reduction to practice. While this term has taken on somewhat different meanings for different people, I see no need to rein in such variations in understanding. Insistence on uniformity will inevitably lead to tyranny of the orthodoxy, sterilization of ideas, and eventually weakening of the field. Suffice it to say that in spite of such variations on the theme, there is a sufficient body of concepts and practices that make for a common ground. I'd like to comment on a couple of these common precepts in design insofar as they are pertinent to the mission of higher education. Simon reminded us that professional education is about making things, or making things happen. Education includes inculcating a maker disposition in the learner and giving them tools to succeed. Today, education cannot merely mean the transmission of knowledge from the teacher and a passive reception of that transmission by the learner. The hallmark of an educated person is not the abundance of facts he retains or recalls. It is what he can do with what he has learned. Learning, therefore, must lead to doing, and it is in doing that further learning takes place. If this sounds like John Dewey, I do agree. But in advocating for design, I think Simon has gone beyond Dewey, from doing to making. Still, Simon and Dewey were fellow travelers on the same journey. And indeed, both of them hail from the University of Chicago of a particular era. Now, someone had alluded to this earlier, and I will repeat that it is high time that we rethink the use of problem sets as a workhorse for undergraduate education. Questions in problem sets to be graded by teaching assistants tend to be questions with unique answers. They train students to solve questions posed by others. Problem sets represent an intellectual activity carried out within a bounded space. In contrast, design education is intended to conduct the student from a bounded space into an unbounded space, where he learns to explore and to create. It is a necessary preparation for the student to enter into the world, which is a very unbounded space. Now, one prominent feature of design thinking that has evolved beyond Simon's conception is the human centricity of design, hence human-centered design. I cannot emphasize enough the importance of bringing humanity back into education, including technical and professional education. For too long, academia has thrived on objectivization, turning the animate into the inanimate. But humans are messy. They conform to invariant laws of nature in some ways and are highly variable in other ways. By reducing human behavior to a set of variables relatable to each other by logical operations, we have arbitrarily created the categories of the rational and the irrational. Being human is both. to ignore the variable and the irrational just so that human behavior can be neatly described by mathematical operations is a distortion of humanity at best and a dehumanization at worst. Any solution that we design for human problems inevitably depends on the premise of how we describe humanity. Design represents an alternative approach. Design does not begin with abstraction of humanity, but with observation of humanity. Design thinking is not only accepting, but respectful of human messiness. It acknowledges both the inner space and the outer space of human existence and strives to satisfy both, even if this may never be fully possible. Design takes into consideration not only objects, but also experiences, human impulses, processes, relationships, and more. It is a grounding that protects against solutions that satisfy the designer's assumptions, but are irrelevant to the recipients. Whether it be an entrepreneur creating a new widget for the market or a political leader devising a policy for a population, open-minded observation of humanity tethers design to humanity as it is. This is particularly pertinent as we now live in a world overflowing with powerful technologies whose impact on people has yet to be fully fathomed. The need for dialogue between technology and humanity has never been greater before. But missing all too often is an interoperable language between the two. Herein is a critical role that design can play. Design is the API between technology and humanity. Design affords a process and a methodology by which technology is translated into human relevance. Now, Simon also alluded to the pursuit of academic respectability as one cause for the decline of design in his times. Consider academic publications, which are the currency for climbing the academic ladder. An ethnographic study will never be viewed as favorably as a publication full of mathematical equations and models. What is sacrificed in the abstraction of mathematical modeling is humanity. Yes, in all its messiness. It may not be immediately evident, but the metrics by which we evaluate academic achievement do cascade down to impact on how a university can fulfill its obligation to society at large. This brings me to the place of humanities in a professional curriculum, such as engineering. The most common practice, if not the universal one, is to require each student to take a certain number of courses from the humanities departments. When I was an undergraduate studying engineering, I remember these humanities requirements as nothing but a nuisance. I took 2 courses in Jewish history, which I love, but they were merely informational. I took a course in symbolic logic. By virtue of its being offered by the philosophy department, that course checked the box. None of the courses I took to fulfill the humanities requirement did anything to develop my humanities. It took me many years to realize that it is not about taking courses in the humanities department. It is about developing the humanity of the students. One of the powers of design education is to do just that. Now, if I may quote Herbert Simon again, The proper study of mankind has been said to be man. But I have argued that people, or at least the intellectual component, may be relatively simple, that most of the complexity of their behavior may be drawn from the environment, from their search for good designs. If I have made my case, then we can conclude that in large part, the proper study of mankind is the study of design, not only as the professional component of a technical education, but as a core discipline for every liberally educated person. That is Simon. So it is in keeping with this thought that the MIT Morningside Academy for Design is designed to be cross-cutting across the whole institute. It is not a single department. It is not a silo. The Academy is designed to be open and porous to the whole MIT community. My hope is that every student, undergraduate and graduate, in the course of their education at MIT would find a way to be exposed to design, and that such an exposure would awaken and enrich their humanity. In so doing, they will find purpose to go along with their technological prowess and their creative energy. What we will learn as we put the Academy into practice will be shared freely with other universities. And in future summers, the Academy will run programs in design education for school teachers so that school children can be exposed to the concepts of design at an early age. Given the leadership position of MIT in education, I cannot think of a better home for this initiative. And listening to all the talks today, I have once again feel so confirmed, assured that this is the right place. I'm also heartened by the enthusiasm with which the MIT community has embraced the Morningside Academy. I'm grateful to my dear friend Bob Millard and to President Rive, to Dean Hashim Sarkis, John, Maria, many of the faculty members that had come and had dinner with me and talk about this idea. And in time, members of faculty who actually shaped the Academy and turned it into a reality that today we are gathered here to celebrate. So with confidence, I know many young lives will be touched by the Morningside Academy. And with great anticipation, I look forward to the works of these students who will go forth from here with mind and hand to be of service to humanity. Thank you.
It's toast time. You have your glasses, right? John, Maria, Marion, Roy, and all of you math people, thank you for a great day. And also thank you for the privilege of inviting me to make the toast, even if it comes with the enviable task of following after Gerald Chan. Gerald, what an inspiring presentation. Thank you so much. At the end of a vigorously forward-looking day full of big and bold ideas, allow me, please, a historical, anecdotal, and perhaps slightly allegorical toast, especially after what I heard today from Gerald. On January 13, 1563, the Academy and Company of Design was founded in Florence, Italy. Sponsored by Cosimo de' Medici, its aim was to bring together craftsmen, painters, architects, sculptors, together under one roof, to study together and formulate a theory of design. At that point, design was emerging from being an idea, emerging out of its simple definition as drawing, to becoming a fuller idea, embracing more the generative, creative process underlying all the crafts and all the arts. The directors of the Academia insisted that this was not to replace the indispensable apprenticeship that artists and craftsmen had to undergo in the field. Thus, they came up with the idea of it being an academia and a company, compagnia, the C. In today's parlance, perhaps it would have been called something like the Medici Academy and Company for Design, or MACD. I'm glad we dropped the C. But from its very inception, design was already elusive in its conception. What is it? What is this thing that brought everybody under one roof, around it, and yet eluded all? It was described as the mother of all crafts. No, as the father of all the arts. Even its gender was debated from the get-go. To give the field and the academy some gravitas, the soft aspect of it, as Simon was referring to it, Michelangelo Buonarroti was appointed as its honorary director, founder, inspirer, mentor, in order to ground it. But when famous artist, architect, theorist Giorgio Vasari and others among the Florentine court artists were involved in shaping the theory, they decided to turn to Michelangelo to ask him to give them some guidance. But they actually found very little response. Basta, he's known to have retorted. It will take much more time than making a piece of sculpture, and he'd rather spend it on sculpture, on making. However, Giorgio Vasari did find in his sonnet that Michelangelo had written the seed of a theory for design. In the sonnet, and it was most probably written to the poet Vittoria Colonna, Michelangelo says, "Not even the best of artists has any conception that a single marble block does not contain within its excess, and that is only attained by the hand that obeys the intellect. Not even the best of artists has any conception that a single marble block does not contain within its excess, and that is only attained by the hand that obeys the intellect." Here we are, or here we were, at the very origins of design, the idea of mens in manus, the hand and the intellect. But there's something else in between. The debate continued, the debate ensued. Is Michelangelo saying that sculpture is the highest form of design? Is design an extractive art, or is it an injective art? I would like to suggest another interpretation, perhaps a slightly over-the-top interpretation. These verses come from a sonnet, and this sonnet was a love poem, albeit Platonic, from Michelangelo to Vittoria. And in a way, Michelangelo was trying to explain to her how love works, what love is. And that perhaps he's trying to tell her that it takes her art, she was a very accomplished poet, to extract a soul from that block of marble called Michelangelo. So design perhaps is an act of love. And Michelangelo is trying to explain it in a love poem, how that block of marble can be ensouled. Design is a process of ensouling. Your gift to us is an act of love itself. It's a love sonnet. And Gerald, to the Chan family, the Morningside Foundation, we love you back. To you all, to Bethany and Bob, remember it all started in your kitchen. To Raphael and Marty for shepherding it through. To Diane for bringing it all the way to the finish line. To my fellow deans, especially my partner in crime, Ananta Chandrakasan. To the heads of department, Nicholas, Evelyn, Deva. To all of you who share this love, we promise you that we will work hard to extract the soul out of this block of marble, or is it steel, that we call technology. And if we don't find it there, we promise you that we will inject it by design. It's a lot of work, I know, but if Michelangelo could do it, the MIT students can do it. We will get started tomorrow morning. But tonight, let's party. Cheers.